Mananui, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe.
Kia ora, bro. Kia ora, bro. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast and giving up your time. I know you're a busy guy, and it's great to be sitting across the table from you. I want to start with the early years, bro. Tell me, what is it that I need to know about young Mananui, your upbringing, some of your influences that shaped the man sitting in front of me today?
Well, tēnā koe, tēnā tātou. Big pātai, that one, bro, and the starting point for me is kia whakatōmuri te haere whakamua. And I guess we're all products of our whakapapa. So probably the best way to frame that up, bro, is the various iwi that make me. Kaitahu ka te māmoe waita is my primary foundation, but of course there's heaps more to me, bro. Raukawa, rangi tāne. We come from just up there in Pāmi, my lines.
As opposed to rangi tāne.
Ki te tau iho te waka. Albeit though we do have ties through there.
Same whakapapa?
Different whakapapa, bro, ki taku ne mōhio, no te whānau mahuri mātou. And that's a massive iwi in its own right. If you hear the names Manawatu Tera, you can definitely guarantee that we're of the same lines. My taua was a Manawatu Tera, and 2/3 of Kaikoura, Kātikuri is the same, but not to just settle on that whakapapa as well. There's much more to be discovered. Obviously, I've received this name like Mananui.
Big name. Big name,
bro. And it's a tipuna name too, bro. It was gifted to me at birth by Paulbani, Manawatu. And so when I came around, my mum and dad were looking for a name. They reached out to Paulbani, and Paul gifted my parents 2 names, Mananui and Te Whare Rākau. And of course they chose Mananui, and that is what it is. But Te Whare Rākau is a name that has stuck with me as well. I've named my business after that. I've been craving to find ways to bring that into my world as well. So yeah, so that's Mananui. Man, the quick fire version of our upbringing was I'm the Pōtiki. I'm the son of 2 really awesome people. Annie Charlton, or Page actually, was my mother's maiden name, Australian whānau. Her mother migrated out from England as a child and then was put into the sort of state care system from a very young age, her and her sister, and they were kind of mokopuna of warfare, really? The World Wars. I think I remember stories of Fancy Nancy or Grandma talking about memories of being bombed in
the UK?
No, bro, in Newcastle, New South Wales.
Really?
Really. Japanese had made their way out there and they were actively bombing.
In Newcastle?
Buzzy, yeah.
I don't even know any of those kōrero.
Yeah. Here's one for you too, bro. There was more bombs dropped in Darwin than there was in Pearl Harbor.
Really?
For example.
Yeah.
So yeah, we come from English stock, but with a real Australian, flavour. And that was my mum's side, and my father's side, as I've just mentioned, being primarily raised as Māori. And my pops was born into a whānau where his mother, my taua Merenia Manawatu Tera, died not long after giving birth to him. And his father, probably by the age of 13. So Pākehā man, raising 5 Māori kids in the 50s and 60s to his partner who had passed on by way of tuberculosis. So I would describe them as broken families. And to look at my parents, I would look at people doing their very best to survive. My father framed his life off from what he'd read in books. So that he was passionate about the outdoors, the taiao, and he went into forestry and deer culling, did that professionally, saw the transition of on foot to chopper, the sort of late 60s and 70s. And my mama, really broken home, a really abusive father, biological father, who's my grandfather. Yeah, ka aroha ki a rātou mā, because I never experienced any of that. And so I guess that's the courage of my mum and my dad. So 2 people who were not lost, but craving connection and craving stability come together. And then not long after that, my big sister Mihiata comes, and then myself. Both of us born in Australia. My pāpā went from southwestland from deer culling into mining.
Okay.
And so that's what set him...
So that's how you end up back over there?
That's how we ended up over there, and we basically went from contract to contract.
Okay. In the mines?
Yeah. My dad was a specialist drill and blast dude, focused on underground tunnelling. and then basically branched out to the world. And by the age of 8, bro, we had lived in China, Thailand, Malaysia, all through the outback. Bro, I'm talking different reo, talking different culture, all tangata whenua, really shaping my worldview before having even stepped foot on my own takiwa. So
there's a lot of similarities there, bro, with your stories and mine. Yeah, I mean, I was born here in Aotearoa, but even just listening to how you describe your mātua, a similar story to my dad and my mum, even both coming from broken homes, but how they managed to work out with that as their upbringing, how they managed to work out a different way and how to create an environment where me and my own whānau were able to just be, I mean, we just had the best childhood. Super safe, never needed anything, never wanted anything. 2 loving parents, still madly, deeply in love today. Such a good example. But then also the going overseas and getting that worldly experience and just building empathy and understanding of how other cultures operate. It just makes you it just gives you a whole another level of understanding. By the time I was same sort of age as you, by the time I was 10, I'd been all through the Middle East, parts of Asia, because Dad was in the army. So Dad was a peacekeeper.
Wow, so you would have gone to Singapore?
I actually haven't been to Singapore, but Thailand and, all different parts of Asia, but mostly in the Middle East, Egypt, Lebanon. We lived in Israel, we lived in Syria, Jordan, Beirut, all of those places. And you just get to see extreme poverty. And 12-year-olds walking around with M16. I knew what an M16 was. As a boy that was born in Ōtautahi, you're not supposed to know what an M16 looks like. And we would see people disassemble, put together M16s at McDonald's. 12-year-olds walking down the street. So you just get that worldly experience and it just gives you a whole new perspective. I think you don't ever forget that. But I can imagine that's some of the stuff that you saw. Maybe not the same examples, but just different things that you just wouldn't see if you were brought up here in Aotearoa.
Bro, just riffing off the back of that, thanks for sharing that. Obviously, our families go way back as well, so there's a whole heap of things going on. From Penrith Ave to Hapū House to Mokoia. But absolutely, I remember seeing my first dead body at a very young age. And I remember being confronted by poverty at a very young age. And in some cities where you smell it before you see it, I remember seeing, the value of somebody, like living their life in the gutter to propping up an animal above the tangata. Or within that same vein, I also saw culture, religion, and community willing to take the clothes off their back to gift to you. So manaaki, and manaaki takata was something that the whole way through my upbringing, like I can only draw a line in the sand in one particular area, and I'll get to that. But the whole way through, when we were growing up in third world countries, was the manaaki of the hukanga and their pride to know that they've honoured you and that you've had a safe and an enjoyable stay on their whenua. To arrive to move into Christchurch, completely different experience, bro. And I think by that stage I was about 10. And the biggest culture shock in my life was actually moving back to my own takiwa. Was going to Christchurch South Intermediate, living in a world where they refused to say your name, a name like Mananui, and often looking for either a shortened version or a second or third name to reference you by, but also paired with the fact that, we're quite fair, so what are we supposed to be? Even though we're coming home and all my whānau, all my hapū are still living at home, was a really interesting experience, bro. So there was a Mananui that was rich in many, many ways, and then there was a Mananui starting his connection journey at a deficit. And bro, I'm talking everything Te Ao Māori I flew into head first, and it was always going to be a strength of mine. It was the schooling system or the system that I found myself in that really I struggled with big time.
How did they what were some of those what are some of those memories that you can recall from South Intermediate, or just moving back into this environment where you felt I'm coming home, but it didn't feel like home? It felt like, well, what did it feel like?
Oh man, what did it feel like? It felt like I was a stranger in my own whenua. And that's the kaitahu, that's a large portion of the kaitahu story, connection with the outside world took place over 100 years before that of the far north or the central North Island, and it was because of whaling and sealing. And so integration me ki was something that was quite mature in comparison to other iwi. And obviously a lot of people look at tahu and think, they haven't got their reo, they haven't got their custom, they haven't got this, they haven't got that. In reality, it was actually contrasting. But to mention some of the things that I experienced, man, I remember being laughed at doing kapahaka at Christchurch South. I remember the whole assembly erupting in laughter while the three tāne, Tahu Huriwai, I think Ben might have been around, and Teina Paniora and myself all doing, our wahine do their thing, and then we come to the front and do our haka.
Yep.
And the whole crowd just laughing.
Why?
Don't know, bro.
Were you, looking back on it, did you not know what you were doing and they were laughing at that? Or were they just totally oblivious and ignorant to what was going on and they thought it was funny?
I think it was the latter. And there was an inability from the adults in the room to pull that into line. Instead, it probably made us more stubborn than anything, because we all came from strong whānau Māori, and we had the heightened awareness at that time, even though we were young. I guess it's a product of having come from here, to be resilient and to be strong and to hang on to your identity, because obviously it is our strength.
So those early years shaped you in many, many ways.
Big time.
Obviously your pāpā, your whole whānau, moving back here to Ōtautahi, when I first got to know you and your whānau, it was being aware of a lot of the mahi that your pāpā was doing, and for your hapū and just for te ao Māori in general. Tell me about some of those memories, and because if I think back to my own pāpā, because we came up at the same time, basically, in the same neighbourhood.
Basically.
And I think about my pāpā, memories of going out to ngā haui whāmarae, walking through those whare and, playing out the back in the whare kai. I mean, those are my early memories. I'm sure that you must have your own version of that story, because your pāpā was doing the same mahi in a different environment, right?
Yeah, e orita ana te tarāua nei āhua. Our upbringing is pretty similar, having heard that, and also, watching as well. But first and foremost, big mihi te o pāpā. Matua Hector, the man, played a massive role in both of our upbringings, not just yours and your siblings, but I want to acknowledge him. Just being a pau in those times, still to today. And that's obviously an example of the beautiful support that he has at home for your mama and for you fellas as well. So me mihi ka tika ki āia. Yeah, just like I said a little earlier, my pāpā, his whole journey was ko waia no hea ai. His whole life, that was the two questions he had to ask himself constantly. And so I think that by the time that he was ready to come home, he dove headfirst into all things to do with our hapū, and his strengths were the taiao. He could see things that he could quickly support an outcome for, and that would be able to give back to the pā. And that was basically it. The pāpā was awesome, bro. He had a vision for our takiwā, and it was to recloak it, to recanvas Papatuanuku again with the right mokopuna. I remember coming back to Koko and even our awa kokourarata, it didn't have fences, it had stock access issues, it had no trees.
Right.
Fast forward to today, bro, it's completely recloaked.
Yep.
Mai te uta ki te tai, one of the only awa on the pātaka to be in that state. And it was, something that was pretty special that we've all been able to inherit from my father and my mum's efforts.
And obviously, chip off the old block.
Yeah.
You have, as you said, dove head first into that mahi. You seem to have picked up a lot of the legacy that your pāpā has left behind, and you're just trying to carry on the mahi. How do you normally describe, or typically describe to people, what it is that you do?
Oh, man.
In mahi.
Yeah, in mahi. That's a good question, bro.
Because it's multifaceted, eh?
Yeah.
Me, you do lots of different things.
Bro, there's purpose everywhere wrapped up in the things that I do, bro. I have to have purpose. I have to connect with it.
Yeah.
And what better way than to continue the efforts of every generation better than the last? I mean, that's basically our responsibilities as pāpā.
That's how I describe being a good kaitiaki, Because people, it's a buzzword, especially in the corporate world. Everyone goes kaitiakitanga, all the tangas,
All the tangas.
But, kaitiakitanga is a big one. And I think people get pigeonholed into this idea of, oh, well, it's just about being environmentally sustainable and all the rest of it. And it is that, don't get me wrong. If I had to boil it down, it's the responsibility that you and I feel to be good ancestors. And it's weird to talk about yourself as an ancestor today, because you go, well, aren't ancestors from the past? And yeah, of course they are, but we will be someone's ancestor one day. And it's like the decisions that we make today, are we looking after future generations, ones that we haven't even met yet, or not? And that's really what it means to be a good tupuna, but also what it means to be a good kaitiaki. And not just for the environment, but for our reo, our tikanga, awa.
Kia ora.
Is that the pressure that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Or what you feel when you wake up?
Yeah. It's a hard one to describe, but sometimes it is pressure, bro. Absolutely. But then I just think it's being aligned with purpose, and I'm really privileged, bro, to be aligned and know who I am. That's my privilege. I don't wake up going kōwaio nor heo. I wake up, open my window, bro, and I see it. That's my privilege.
You talked about your dad. That was one of his pātai for a long, long time. Kōwaio, who am I? Nor heo, where am I from? And you've just described your privilege as being, I don't have to ask myself that pātai. I get up every day and I know it. What a wonderful legacy for a pāpā to know. I don't know if you ever told him that, but for him to know that he walked through life trying to answer those two pātai, and he must have done something right, and your mama, for their pōtiki to not have to ask those pātai anymore. That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool, man.
And a privilege, like you said.
A privilege, like I've said. And that's also my responsibility, and I guess that's where pressure comes from, right? Is feeling that sense of expectation that others have on you because you're in a privileged position. But I look around and it's not lost on me seeing a lot of tāne Māori or just Māori in general who are lost. They don't have that foundation, and it's because of that I think, what excuse do I have? Why am I so feeling this way or feeling that way? You just need to up, bro. And so that drives me a lot, obligation and responsibility. In leadership spaces now as well.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. It's really bloody hard, bro. Really hard dealing with our people, dealing with the people that have been institutionally oppressed for generations in a takiwā that is completely modified in comparison to what our tipuna walked in. It's like, for me, the taiao personifies the people. And you say, kaitiakitanga is definitely a buzzword for corporate world, or definitely local and central government in terms of being able to fit into their boxes. But the starting point is so far back. And I guess for me, bro, it's just about, I look at that whakatauki that Koromita taught us, mata te mai he te kura, whakaeke mai he te kura. And bro, we are te kura. And we have been deliberately cultivated in a way that makes sure that our rau is straight, it's strong, and it's going to grow high, making sure that in our time, we're doing enough to move that ceiling so that those next ones are coming through.
Yeah.
That's kind of what embodies my purpose, and it's really hard, but you just got to harden up. Sounds bad, bro, but you just got to go for it.
It's real though, eh?
Yep.
And sometimes you just got to remember that. It's not meant to be easy. It's not easy. Like you said, you started this conversation with it's really bloody hard, but you just got to harden up and get on with it.
You got to harden up, bro, and you got to get on with it, because I look at my elders and they're all dying, if not are passed on. And when we're looking for tōtara, bro, we the tōtara now, which is why I take my head off to the way you are, bro, because you do work your butt off. And I get it. While you're here, you have to make hay. And I can feel that. I can feel that drive that you have. It's exactly the same for me, but we have our various different lanes, I guess.
Yeah. So
only about 100+ years ago was our tipuna actively involved in warfare.
That's crazy to think of that.
Or our grandfathers' times, they were at war. I'm not implying that we're warmongering men that have had these big chips on our shoulders, but what I am saying is in our communities, we do need to play a role where we sit with our masculinity in a healthy way.
Yep. And
we step up because our women need it, our children need it, and our brothers left and right of us need that as well. They need to see something. Hei whakapau kaha ia koe anō. And so I have not mastered it. Most weeks I feel like it's way too much for me, but I get up and I go again.
That's all you can do, bro.
Yeah.
I know you described one of those purposes, you know, trying to be a fit pāpā. You're a pāpā now. Beautiful tamariki, as well as all of those other various hats that you have to wear. Because what is your role in your hapū?
Oh, bro. Active hapū member. I'm also the chairman of Te Rākau Limited.
Kapai. And you got your business as well?
Yeah.
Tell me about your business.
Wicked, bro. So my business came in parallel with entering into formal roles of leadership. Because leadership you don't have to have those tūraka to be a leader.
No, you don't. You're right.
It's just part of the path that I'm on at the moment.
Yep.
And it looks like this.
Yep.
Being a representative for my iwi and being a leader supported by a group of leaders for my hapū. And one that was put on by our people. So, you know, that's a pretty important mantle.
Yep.
When I look at my business, the business came through sheer need for me to evolve, but also to earn tūteo. I was in an employment situation when I first became chair where I felt conflicted.
Okay.
You know, I was having conversations that at a treaty partnership level here, at the same place at which I was employed. And so I'd go from council to back to my desk, you know, within a matter of hours. And so the business side of things was merely me looking at the future and going, if I've got a paitawhiti that looks like blah, what are the paitata? And the paitata was me going out on my own, starting my own business and having a go.
Yep.
To free myself up for more of a lifestyle of basically being a mokai for the hapū and for the iwi, basically. Being one of many that have to do all the things.
Yep.
No pay.
Yep.
No real sort of infrastructure around having our leaders in those places at their best, simply because there isn't enough pūteo to go around.
Yeah. Everyone's got to hold down a job, put food on the table, and then this comes from whatever's left over in the cup. Whatever's
left over in the cup and less, bro, we throw onto the fire that is ahuka. So really lucky, really blessed to have some really strong connections across the motu now. Have worked mostly all over Aotearoa and recently have connected with our whānau in the Mananui Ramsden.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear about that. I saw you on Instagram. So your primary business is consulting?
Consulting within the taiao space, working with hapū and iwi, and I play a big role in who I pick. So it's a mutual thing, not a one-way, which is like your traditional sense of being in an employment position.
Yes.
You just got to do your job. And I found that I was doing my job and I was doing it really bloody well, and I was doing it in ways where communities were gaining, like the rural community. That's a whole podcast in its own, bro, because I think if general society today was to make a decision on the rural community, you would be woefully led astray, especially by central government.
You and I have had these kōrero in the past, and as someone who doesn't engage frequently or in any kind of real meaningful way with the rural community, apart from a bunch of hostels that I grew up with at Boys High, got to know them as good guys.
Sure.
I don't really have an appreciation for what it is that the rural community does. But I remember sitting down with you one day and going, bro, their goals are actually in many ways aligned with hapū and Māori in general, like what we're all trying to achieve. If they ruin their whenua and their waterways and everything else that makes up the taiao, they go out of business. So there is convergence there. There are mutually, everyone wants the same thing. But it sounds like, listening to what you have told me in the past, they get a bad rap in many cases. No, don't get me wrong, there's always some bad eggs. Sure. That's same for Māori. All of us.
100%.
There's always some bad eggs, but by and large, I guess if I'm picking up what you're putting down, they get a bad rap.
Oh, they're an easy scapegoat, especially when you're trying to find votes. It's really easy to polarize the urban and rural divide, and turn something like that into a Māori versus rural people divide. And the reality is rural communities are intergenerationally focused, people of the land. And in many cases, in some of the really strong Canterbury communities and further afield, they've been tasked with something that was destined to fail anyway, like the health of the environment. Water quality and water quantity issues is actually, we need to look past those communities who live on that space at the moment, and we need to understand the systems that force them to be in those positions. And our central government has a lot to step up on that space, especially in the 80s, where sheep and beef, granddad, grandma, properties were incentivised to intensify and mortgage themselves through the eyeballs. And you and me, we're looking to create wealth, bro, and we're looking not just our children, but we're looking to set our mokopuna up for success. It's a slippery slope. It's like a Ferris wheel that keeps going around. It's undeniable the issues now. And if you're an opportunist looking to gain votes, you would separate the two. You would light a fire over here and say, well, see, this is the real issue that's going on in our communities by some Johnny-come-lately narcissist who wants votes.
Yeah.
It's so far from the truth, actually. But I've had families like absolutely break down and in terms of their whole worldview around Te Ao Māori. Completely, like from the grandfather through to the wife and to the kids as well. My experience has led me to believe that actually I'd rather go into the area and work alongside people because you're actually better off in the tent. And if you've got what it takes to be in those spaces, it's not easy. And I've had my front door smashed in, I've had attacks, I've had physical and verbal sort of abuse slung at me and my whānau. But I've seen also the magic that happens in those communities. Māori are no longer the people living on the whenua. And that's one of the brilliant outcomes of colonisation. Roles reversed.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
You talked before about going way, way, way back. And I gather what you're talking about is that trip that you've just made to Taputapuātea.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, bro. I've seen Scotty on Origins. I've seen him do that trip and gone, that's pretty cool. Love to do that one day. Oh, you're getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
But you just did it. Tell me about it. I'm keen to hear it.
Bro, look.
First of all, how did you end up over there? What was the go?
Oh, bro. Like any good story, it starts with a rugby, bro.
Nice.
I was kicking back one day doing some mahi and I got a message from one of the bros, Tumama, who had just locked in a contract, him and his beautiful partner, me. And it was to help coordinate the largest concentration of Pacific leaders to go to Tahiti and have a conversation around, the kaupapa was called Te Aki Moana. We're looking at sort of more contemporary methods of protecting areas of our ocean. And so Tumama was like, bro, why haven't I seen your name apply for something like this? And I was like, well, because I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
And I've never really had the opportunity to do those sort of international things, but really lucky with stuff that I've been able to do in Aotearoa. So this was a bit of a first for me. I applied. Apparently the selection panel had seen me months earlier speaking at the New Zealand Water Conference.
Gotcha.
And my name was known, and so they wanted me to be involved. And 42 Pacific leaders across 22 different islands came to Tahiti, and we had a wānaka. Like you say, that word convergence, it's like our islands in the deep south, bro. This convergence of manu that have crossed paths and are needing to rest and recover and to refuel on a group of islands before the next flight, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, we rolled up to Papeete, spent a couple of days there. We met with the president of Tahiti, which was cool. It was interesting because his politics was the equivalent. It's the equivalent to saying the leader of Te Pāti Māori will become the president.
Wow.
So he is of the activist, the antagonist, the indigenous, tangata whenua view. He still lives in the hood.
Yeah.
And he is the president of Tahiti. Wow. Huge group of islands, and of course they have a whakapapa to France as well.
Yep. And so is that you say that as if because if the leader of Te Pāti Māori became the prime minister, that would be out the gate, right?
That would be out the gate in
totally
this country,
unexpected. So is that currently the political climate over there? Was he not expected to be the president? Or he just come up out of nowhere?
Look, there's far more capable, far more important people that know this stuff other than me. But these are the bits and pieces I was able to put together from the hokanga that were there.
Gotcha.
And I could sense what it meant.
Yeah.
You know, this stage of occasion meant a lot to those to our Tahitian brothers and sisters.
Cool.
So we went from the main island to Mōreo, and we stayed there. We had a wānaka there. That's where we really dove into the nuts and bolts of
what it's going to take.
What it's going to take, and I love that stuff. Like you, a big starting point for me starts with my ear, as in the reo, and the Tahitian reo, bro, is so similar to ours.
Really?
It's wild.
I've heard it. I've heard that.
Yeah.
I haven't actually sat with anyone and listened to them speak Tahitian.
I'd go as far to say about 60% of their kōrero I had a command for.
Really?
And the gaps were their kupu, their tupuna, their nuance.
It's not hard to believe, therefore, that when Tupaia and others come to Aotearoa, that they knew each other. They might not have met each other, but they knew the whakapapa, and they could probably communicate enough. They weren't that far separated linguistically.
But we are more closely related to our whānau throughout the whole of the Pacific than we realise, and that's probably the biggest thing that I've walked away with, bro.
Really?
Like, we've got this little chat group, and every day kōrero gets piled on, and the latest theme is what use does particular mautere have for breadfruit. Oh no, we bake ours, we steam ours. Oh no, we mash ours. And so, being Kai people, one of the biggest things that I noticed was actually the absence of Māori conversation in that particular type of food. Of course, we've got carbohydrates. Of course, we've got root vegetables. But here in the south, it's a completely different landscape to that of the far north, Te Rarawa, and all the islands.
Yeah, true.
So so we had this ongoing conversation of sharing and exchanging our culture, and then also finding similarities. And te reo is one, kai is another, and pūraka was some of the biggest things that I found. And that leads me to answer your question, Raiatea, Taputapuātea, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, when I was sent the link to have a look at the kaupapa, it was that sold me.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I was like, I get to go with the hokanga.
Yeah.
I get to go with a whole heap of the cousins from the Pacific. And you're telling me you're going to pay for me to go? I'm there if you want me.
Yeah.
And bro, we went towards the back end of our entire trip, and it was real. As soon as we landed to Raiatea, I was just overcome with this calmness. It wasn't like, you get nervous for a conversation or nervous for a game or hui. It was absolute toe. And I knew I was speaking, and I knew that there was going to be a bit of publicity, and it was sweet. It was funny too. I had one of our Tahitian wahine, who I later found out was matakite, and I later found out had stuff to tell me. The day before getting to Raiatea, she wouldn't leave me alone. And I say that in the best way, and no doubt you're going to be watching this at some stage. She was basically being a kaitiaki, and she knew what it meant for Māori to be those of us from the Tainui waka, those of us from the Takitimi waka, to be walking on those kohatu. And she sat with me, and then even as we were there and driving towards Taputapuātea, she had made a rokoa for me, and she rubbed it on my forehead. And she goes, just to keep you safe. I was like, wicked.
Cool.
So the scale was massive, and we had karaua while we were there, pulling the Māori aside. Ngāti wheke, massive contingent of our rāpaki whānau were there.
Cool.
So the wheke in the Pacific is a huge pūrākau. It's a huge binder connector of us all.
Do you mean the wheke as an octopus, or Ngāti wheke, or what are you referring to?
I think the wheke as in the octopus.
Yeah, the symbolism.
The symbolism.
Well, there's all that kōrero with kupe as well. Wheke muturangi. I'm sure there's others as well.
100, bro. And every island that we went to, they talked about wheke. And here I am being an uri of wheke, being tikao, and I just happen to have all these uncles and cousins from Ngāti wheke with the kaupapa as well. So it was awesome, bro, yeah.
And none of that would have been lost on those...
None of that was lost with those tangata whenua, those karaua. You'd basically you'd go from person to person, and you'd enter into wānaka. And it was something that really blew my mind that my friend Tohe taught me was, You know, we talk about Hawaii all the time, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this location beyond the islands in which we exist in. And it's kind of elevated at a level where it's a pursuit, right?
Yeah. It's not a physical place necessarily that you will get to.
Yep.
Yep.
But it's a mindset. And as I alluded to, I was told some things about me. I was told some things about our hapū and our iwi. And the advice that I was given is look for peace. And basically what she told me was, you fellas are our Hawaii. So if you're thinking about the marae, Taputapuātea, and all those kohatu and throughout hundreds and hundreds, thousands of years of ceremony, convergence of all these motere coming together and then dispersing, the dispersing is that actually they've tasked us to go to Hawaii. And of course, Hawaii for us is Waitaha, or is Te Pātaka Rākau Hautu for me. And remember, if we're being good ancestors, we need to find harmony, we need to find peace, irrespective of the context of which we find ourselves in as Māori today. So it was cool, bro. It was really, really special.
Sounds like a special trip.
Yeah.
I'll never stick with you for a while. Bro, you're looking like you're in good shape. Being a fit pāpā. I'm on the same journey. Tell me about that. What's going on for you at the moment? You're just trying to get fit, you feeling your age a little bit?
Well, am I feeling my age?
Yeah.
Bro, I'm sitting here. I've lost count the amount of reconstructive surgeries I've had. Like you, bro, we grew up playing footy. And like you, we grew up doing thousands and thousands of takakea on the marae Aotearoa, and leading a life where young boys who are wired differently to our wahine, and we definitely embodied every aspect of that. I would rather be outside. I would rather be active. I would rather be this. I'd rather be that. I listened to Aaron Harpuku's kōrero and I relate to him 1000%. My door is right outside of the whare tinana, the taha tinana. And so fast forward, you know, I'm coming into being 40 soon. I'm 37 now. And, you know, it's easy to gain the wrong kind of weight. It's easy to stay sick for extended periods of time. It's easy to have a mental load that really is overwhelming. And so I do heavily rely on being physically active. And it's not about necessarily, for me, about being jacked or being particularly lean or this or that. It's actually carving out that time for me, ki te whai wā, ki te noho kātahi, kei roto i ahau anō. And whether it's by way of reps or by way of breathing or by way of carving some time out for your day. I see you're really big in the mornings. And I think that there's something to be said about that, about the outcome could look like this, but really it's actually a mental thing for me.
Yeah, same. I mean, the physical is important as well.
Yeah.
But, you know, because the feeling a pump after a good workout does feel good. But for me, it is more mental than it's physical.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a good alarm clock for me. That's why I do it in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, I've been challenged, and I won't actively say it, but, you know, I say it's like a really good therapy session is going to the gym. That's not to say that's all you should do, guys, and just go to the gym. There's a whole multitude of things, particularly with people who are struggling. I'm just saying that that's an ingredient that works for me, and I'll always be in the pursuit of being stronger. I watched my pāpā pass away, and he basically lost his ability to have grip strength, and he lost the strength of his legs. And I've listened to kōrero that talk about longevity, and we are in the ages, bro, if we don't get on top of it, for the next 15 to 20 years, bro, we need to pack on as much muscle mass as possible.
I agree.
And from that point on, maintaining our ability to have strong legs, to be able to walk, to be able to be active, to be able to continue to turn up to the things that give back to us as entire people. You know, my father would fall over.
Yeah.
He was a big, strong man once upon a time, but I would watch him. I'd have to go and find him some days. He'd fallen over and he couldn't get up. Yeah. Lost the strength in his legs. He lost his strength in his arms. And in fact, it led towards losing confidence. And so for me, you know, having already buried my pāpā, looking at the way in which he lived and then the way in which he died, like ever, like always, it's about how do we improve on those things.
What can we learn from that?
Yeah.
Bro, you're absolutely right. And when I was in my 20s, don't even think about it. And then you get into your 30s, and then all of those stupid cliches start to become the reality, like, knees are a bit sore today, and getting up's just a little bit harder. And then you start to take it seriously, I think, in your mid-30s. Well, hopefully this has been my experience. And then you're bang on. It's about muscle mass and maintaining that agility. And the way the story or the example that really hit home for me was, I remember reading a stat, and I won't say it because I'll misquote it, but it was something stupid like 70 or 80% of people who fall over and, say, break their hip or something in their leg, and therefore are bedridden for an extended period of time, develop or basically die as a result of blood poisoning or blood clots because they aren't able to move. So they didn't die from breaking their hip. They died eventually from a blood clot because they weren't able to move. And so if you kind of go, all right, let's reverse engineer that. How do I prevent myself from falling and potentially breaking my hip? Because as I get older,
100.
my bones become a bit more brittle or whatever. And it all comes back to muscle mass, and it all comes back to agility. Because at the moment, if you and I are walking down the street and a dog runs out, chances are our reflexes, you'll see them, and chances are our muscle fibers will twitch quick enough that we can dodge the dog and not fall over and break a bone. But as you get older, you might see the dog telling your body, move, don't let the dog hit you, or don't trip. But if your muscles can't keep up, eventually you're going to trip and you are going to break something. And if you're not lucky, then, potentially that could be the thing that gets you, is a blood clot. What a shit way to go out.
What a shit way to go out, bro.
And so it's like, okay, how do I prevent that? Walking lots, moving, active, and even things like, you talk about confidence and dignity and mana. If you can't get up and down off the wharepaku, bro, that's where that confidence starts to go down. When all of a sudden I can't get up because I don't have the muscle mass to be able to lift myself up, it's tough. So I'm doing everything I can now. It's not about being jacked, like you said, or lean or whatever. I mean, that's nice. That's a byproduct of it. But actually, it's about looking after my 80-year-old self. That's actually what it is. I go to the gym now to look after my 85-year-old self.
And we need to live long lives, bro.
Hard up.
We can't be statistics. I'm going to be prime risk for heart disease, lung disease. Ramsden's, we've got bad lungs. So what am I doing now? It's going to set me up for success tomorrow. And I haven't mastered it, bro. And this particular little window that we're having a conversation is a down period in terms of my active efforts. But over the scheme of a year, over the scheme of a lifetime, where do I want to be in? I also think that I take a lot of confidence, and when I feel good, I feel good. And when I'm not, I'm not.
It's funny how that works, eh?
Funny how that works, bro. I want to be one of those old boys that we grew up with watching doing taiao. And I want to be as active as they were when we were young people, watching them. And that's where I take a lot of my inspiration for, is maturing into one of those old fellas.
Cool. Love it. Love it. So can I ask you, do you mind, do you smoke or vape?
No.
Do you drink alcohol?
Not really.
Interesting. There's been a real shift, I reckon, in this generation. It's not that I don't drink, but I just don't feel the need to drink. Like if I'm at a celebration and someone says, here's a glass of bubbles, I like a glass of bubbles as much as the next person. But if I look back at my early 20s, mid-20s, it was go home after a hard day, sit down, have 2 or 3 beers. I just don't do that anymore. I don't miss it either. Never smoked, never vaped. You obviously work out outdoors.
Try to.
That's
where the taiao piece really works for me.
Yeah.
I
always trying to find ways to be more efficient. And at the moment, I got young tamariki. So it's about like, okay, how do I not kill 2 birds with one stone? That sounds like it's not something I want to do, but how can I make the most of this time? I can wrestle with my 10-year-old, have a good wrestle. It's good quality time with my 10-year-old, having fun, giving him and the other tamariki attention, but also it's good for all of those things that we just talked about. It's working out, it's physical activity.
You got to be smarter when you get older, bro, and we're time poor. We're busy pouring our energy into everything else but ourselves. So if you're finding ways to get the heart rate up with mana, brilliant. And he's going to remember that forever.
Well, that too. Yeah, I mean, I just had this moment, when I took him down to training, and I would sit there and I'd go, off you go for a run.
Mm.
You end up spending 30 minutes, 40 minutes down there watching the tamariki play on the playground or go for a run or whatever.
Mm.
And I was like, I got that. Just do it with them.
Yeah, just do it with them.
Then I don't have to go later.
100%.
I've already done it. Yeah, and like you said, they remember it, They appreciate it.
They remember it. But actually, it's funny, I just had a memory come back to me. I remember seeing you and your dad doing that. And I think you were really into your goal kicking.
Yeah, it was.
And so that was something I remember specifically. Either I was walking through the park and I'd see you and Dad.
Yeah.
He would be coaching you to do that stuff. And or if we were at footy and you were playing, or boys high playing against somebody, I always remember looking up from a ruck or something and seeing Dad.
Yeah.
So I think that that's part of this journey around how do we set our kids up for normalizing and having a good relationship with being active.
Yeah.
Because as we get older, when pressure piles on and we have less time for ourselves, you know, I'd like to think that we've set our next generation up with a healthy relationship with being able to enter through that door that is Te Taha Tinana.
Yeah, no, awesome, bro. I have a last question for you, bro, and it's a big one, but I'm interested to hear what your whakaro are. What do you think, you know, with all your experiences and all of the kōrero that we've had today, what do you think is the most important thing that tāne are not talking about at the moment?
Oh.
But you think it's important. We need to have a conversation about this, but we're not talking about it.
Kia ora. Well, I've buried too many of the bros, too many of the cousins already by the age of, gosh, I'm going to say about 11. I really got to know suicide. I got to know it through my cousin Zion. And then not long after that, I think I was about 18, my cousin Joseph Clark. And so by the age of 18, we had first-hand experiences of suicide. And I'm just talking my bloodline, let alone the people that you rub shoulders with who are no longer with us today.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing I would say that we're not doing enough of is having the courage to just touch base. I'm an introverted extrovert, meaning my natural starting point would be to be quiet and to be somewhat focused or somewhat sitting on my own. But I can do all the other stuff. It is a really important thing to me that once I've got connection, that I maintain them and I keep them strong, like any relationship. Men need men, and we need to be able to be nurturing. We need to be understanding. We need to be kind. We need to set boundaries. We need to set standards. And I think that it's amazing that you and I have grown up to this stage, thanking our fathers as well. But if you look at society today, it's really, really complex. It's really, really disrupted in terms of what is a man. And I would go as far to say is if you've got brothers, tell them you love them, and actively through your weeks, put the effort in to touch base. A tinana nei, a waia nei, a text nei, just keep your lines of communication open. Suicide is something that is regular in my life now, and I've never been in a position of feeling that unwell, that unsteady, that I've personally experienced it, but I see it everywhere. Yeah. And for some reason, I'm always involved with bloody suicide. So I'm lucky I've got groups of mates who would drop anything to have a conversation, to have a kai, to get out of the house. You know, missus might be pissing you off, the kids might be pissing you off, whatever, who will find a way to carve some time out just to talk shit with the boys, whether it's a kai or whatever. So connection, bro. Put some effort in, fellas. Put some effort in to be connected with one another, because men need men. Yeah. We need men.
You talked a little bit about the word complex. That stood out for me. Probably a lot of confusion.
Yep.
I don't feel confused, but I think a lot of people around me, and I look at some of our young people especially, it is tough to work out what it looks like to be a good man. Got some pretty terrible examples out there, obviously.
100.
At both ends of the spectrum. But it must be hard for our young boys, especially, to kind of go, well, what is it? You know, masculinity I feel like masculinity has this bad rap. People think masculinity is People have all sorts of ideas around what masculinity is and isn't. Am I being too hard? Am I being too soft? What do you think it is to be a good man? I mean, and that's a whole podcast, several podcasts. But, you know, what are some of the where do you think we're going wrong?
These devices in our hands don't help, bro. Back in the rā, we had our pā, and we had men within the pā that were cultivated to stand like po. And the generations beneath them would work closely with them, and eventually they would become the po. Today, bro, we're under quite a large attack in terms of the amount of resource and accessibility that our young people have on our phones. And that finds its way into the classroom, and that finds its way into the footy team or your various friend groups, and it gets cultivated in a way that's not aligned with our whānau, value set. I think masculinity is a really good thing.
Yeah, same.
And I think that communities need it. I think that we are the sons and the mokopuna of men who went away and had to do things and never had the safety to heal, never had the safety to be not judged for having fought in wars. And they were basically or largely left to their own devices. Some picked up the bottle, some used the fist. So for me, I think that masculinity is a healthy thing, and I try my hardest to sit in that. That doesn't mean that I don't cry. That doesn't mean that I don't not know what I'm doing. I just think that having had a really strong father who would put his hand around me and talk to me, like my father was my best friend, and he's the only person that I've had in life properly who I don't need to explain myself to. No matter what's going on, he got me. And I think that we need to carve that out for the men in our lives, whether they're our sons, nephews, cousins, or important people that we care about. And it's good to be a provider. It's good to be a protector. It's good to have all those learnings that we got with our taiaha, through kūrero, all the different ahai that we grew up doing, and how do we stand like rangatira in that space. Again, that's a good question.
And I think not feeling like you have to be perfect. Like, bro, I make so many mistakes. I get it wrong, change my mind, I tell my wife I love her, we get frustrated with each other,
100.
We break off and we come back and we sit down and we talk about it and we have hard conversations. And I know that I need to make more time for my tamariki, but life is busy and I'm trying to balance like generational wealth and growth and carving out some time for me to go and get fit, but also don't want my tamariki to feel neglected.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so complex, it's so hard, but I feel like we're afraid to have conversations about what it means to be a good man. And I wish we would. I wish we would actually just go, do you know what? I don't have it figured out.
Yeah.
But I actually think a lot of our issues as tāne can be solved, and I'll probably get some shit for this as well. And this, I'm gathering by what you said earlier on that you maybe have got some shit. But going out and getting strong and having and feeling connection with other tāne as well, and having someone at home. I mean, you talked about your father, and my father's the same. But one thing that I know for sure, for certain, is that my wife Jess and my tamariki will go to the end of the earth. And they'll never ask me to explain. I don't have to prove anything to them. They'll live under a bridge with me. I've said that before, and like those are things that if you can have those relationships with people and you can look in the mirror and go, well, there's a little bit of work to do, but I feel good.
You just nailed it, bro. Men need women.
Yeah.
Hey, and we need our person or our people to prop us up and me mihi ka tika ki a rātou, to our partners and to our mothers, to our sisters, our cousins. Women are propping us all up, left, right, and centre.
Well, mine are anyway.
Mine are too, bro. I like what you said about having conflict as well, because no one is not having that. My partner and I often talk about how do we come back together and how do we focus on what's important. We're both career people. We're both thrusted into parenthood. We're both the po of our respective families as well. And that comes with its expectations and pressures. So I think so long as the whare is good, then the rest is I think that's what the goal is. If you can go back and deal with any kind of hara or raru that might be going down and navigate through good communication and healthy ways of holding space for each other, that certainly worked for me. I know that that's not everyone, but that's been something for us both.
Any closing whakaaro, anything you'd like to share before we... This has been a good quarter. I've enjoyed it, bro.
Yeah, me too, bro. It's nice to sit down with you. It's nice to come back into various points in life, eh?
Yeah.
Come a long way since bouncing a basketball at Te Whānau or standing in the ranks, bro, doing our thing. So to you and your whānau, bro, thank you for being who you are in our community. Tēnā tātou.
Tēnā koe Mananui. All right, bro. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.